The 2022 fall season mostly in the books, and we are updating our rankings, Gorney. So we decided let's talk about every single five-star because we have nothing better to do with our time. So we're going to go one by one. We're going to start at the top. We're not going to keep you in suspense. If you want to watch the show all the way through, we will go all through the 26 five stars I believe we have. And, let's jump right into it, Gorney. Staying number one, Arch Manning. Now, this is controversial for some, mainly other recruiting reporters who also do rankings, who love to say that Arch Manning isn't good, yet everyone keeps him number one. So why is he number one?
He's number one for pretty much every reason why we want to name someone number one. He's incredibly talented on the field. He does a whole lot with not a lot of talent around him. He makes players look good. He throws a very nice ball. He has all the on-field ability that you would want. He's incredibly intelligent. You talk to his coaches. He's basically like a coach on the field for those guys. He has the ability to change plays at the line. And yes, he is the nephew of two of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. And of course, that's going to play a factor into this, and it should. The argument that if his last name wasn't Manning, he wouldn't be number one. Well, his last name is Manning. He is advanced in that way. He understands what it takes to be great. He understands the way that it takes, the way it takes to be a college superstar and then to be drafted early into the NFL. And NFL GMs are going to absolutely love the kid. All of those things play a factor here. Not only, I do take a little offense that like he's number one only because his name is Manning. He's also a very, very talented football player. Yes, I've been on the record many times saying I wish he went to national events. I wish he did Elite 11. I wish he did our camps. I wish he played more 7-on-7. I wish we saw him more just to have a better book on him. But we've seen him plenty, and he's incredibly talented and rightfully deserves to be the number one player in the class right now.
All right. Let me tell everyone real quick. I am the number one Arch fan and on the rival staff. You got a problem, you come to me with Arch's ranking. And I tell this to every person I see at every event who wants to complain. He doesn't come to the events. Well, guess what? He plays football games every Friday. He just played an entire season and didn't throw one interception until the semifinals of the playoffs. So go look, and the argument, look at his numbers. Yeah, go look at his numbers. Look at his career stats. They are up there with some of the best quarterbacks you've seen.
Yeah.
Oh, he doesn't play anybody. Look at his team. Look at the people he's playing. You know who else went to his school? Both of his uncles, and Odell Beckham, who was a tiny 5'11" slot wide receiver, didn't even know what position he was going to play. That worked out okay for us. So you got a problem, you come to me. Arch is number one, and when he's number one in the draft, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear, oh, he's only number one because of his last name. That's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard, because, okay, why is NICO IAMALEAVA number two? Because of his last name? No, it's because of his talent. Arch is talented. He's number one. He's probably going to stay number one unless somebody blows us away. That's my take. Number two, NICO IAMALEAVA. Listen to that pronunciation. I'm ready for my trip to Hawaii. We love this kid. Now, you love him a lot more than some. He's a little raw, but he's an incredible athlete. And once again, he did not play with the best talent, didn't have, the best season in terms of winning a championship, but he's a special prospect.
Absolutely special. The same person who coaches him right now coached Bryce Young when Bryce Young was at Los Angeles Cathedral before he transferred to Mater Dei, and he swears by him. He says they're almost very, very similar prospects in the way that they see the field, but there are definitely differences. IAMALEAVA is a little more raw. Bryce Young was much smoother in his passing, but NICO can really gun it around the field. And what I've learned about NICO over the last year is that he's developed and become more mature as a decision maker on the field. He relied on his athleticism and a crazy strong arm a little too much earlier in his career. But from Vegas last summer, when he beat Malachi Nelson in a big 7-on-7 showdown, which actually turned out to be a dud because NICO's team just stormtroopered those guys, South Florida Express at that time. And then seeing him this season against Downey, who has a quarterback going to Oregon State, who's going to be a very, very talented player. He is incredibly athletic, a phenomenal leader, a great decision maker, and he's almost like Hendon Hooker, but more accurate and more athletic for Tennessee's offense. That's what you're getting. You're getting a very, very talented and competitive kid who's also a multi-sport athlete and is someone who's going to be, has superstar potential in college in the NFL. There's no doubt about it. I love the kid. I'm probably higher on him than a lot of other people, but I'm taking a shot here because I think 3 or 4 years down the road, he can be very, very good.
Yeah, you're talking about an elite athlete and an elite arm. Now, he's a little raw. There are things that need to be cleaned up, but guess what? That's what Josh Heupel does. Perfect fit for him at Tennessee. And the one thing that you can never undervalue when it comes to a quarterback, the ability to stay cool, calm, and collected in any situation. So I love what I've seen from him. I think he's going to be special, and I think he fits in really good here in the top 5. Number 3, Cormani McClain. This one a little bit polarizing. Cormani up and down at times throughout this cycle. We've had him consistently in the top 5, and he's going to stay there, Gorney.
Yeah, this is a case, I think, of someone who had a really, really good junior season. Very impressive, intercepting passes, pick 6, kind of comes in, and lays the lumber when he needs to. And then kind of fizzles a little bit in his senior year, wasn't on the field as much as expected. I'm still going to put my money behind Cormani McClain based on what we've seen over the years of him being a straight dog at corner, loves to play on an island, loves to chirp, super competitive, and then can back it up with elite physical tools. He's long. He's more physical than he looks when he's just walking around. He gets in people's faces. He can jam. He can play off and then run with people. All the things that you want from your elite cornerbacks, he has. And you don't really have to teach him a whole lot once he gets there. Those competitive guys at corner are the ones that really kind of, show out over the long term. Plus, he has all the physical tools. I think Miami's getting a huge, big time guy here. The SEC schools all wanted him. He chose Miami over them, and I think he can see the field pretty early down there.
Yeah, and guess what? Teams are smart. They do not throw at him. So the highlights you're seeing of him playing, those are instinctual plays where he's seeking out the ball and coming off his guy to make a play. So he's had a good season to me. Some people were mad we posted a highlight. Where's all the highlights? Well, guess what? When you're a lockdown corner, the ball doesn't come your way, especially by the time you're a senior. So it's rare for a corner to be ranked this high, but the guys we have had this high, the Derek Stingleys of the world have, typically panned out. So that's where Cormani stays. Number 4, Dante Moore, Oregon commit, as of the moment at least, drops a couple of spots, but still very high on our board.
Yeah, this is really just, not any criticism of Dante Moore, just NICO IAMALEAVA having such a phenomenal season and being such a rare athlete. If he was at the Elite 11, I think NICO could have been in contention for number 1. Dante Moore was number 1 at that event. He is just the guy that's going to place the ball exactly where it needs to be. He's going to lead his team down the field. He's not going to turn it over. He's going to make good decisions. He's not an incredible athlete, but can escape pressure when needed. Playing up in Detroit there, you sort of lose track of him a little bit when all the big-time programs in the South and out here, the Boscos and Mater Deis of the world. But Dante Moore is a very talented player, a tremendous skill set, and what he did at the Elite 11, really separating himself against a lot of talented quarterbacks, really speaks to how good he is. Now, does he stick with Oregon? He has said all the right things, but he has also been a big, big Kenny Dillingham fan. One of the biggest reasons why he went to Oregon was because of Kenny Dillingham being there. I don't think he flips if he goes to Arizona State, but Michigan State's making a run. They're putting together a nice package for him. He had visited Michigan right before making his decision. That would be interesting, especially with them going to the playoff. Miami is a school because Josh Gaddis was a very close friend of his, and Texas A&M continues to look for a quarterback, and they've tried to get him as well. So there's still a lot of moving pieces here, but in terms of talent, Dante Moore is one of the best in the class.
Yeah, and any of those schools can add in a few wide receiver sweeps if they want that Dillingham offense. That is available. So, all right, moving on. David Hicks Jr. back up the ranks. He's now up to number 5. He was as high as 2 at one point in the cycle, Gorney.
Yeah, he's been discussed very, very high, and he's staying high. And what stands out most about Hicks is his versatility along the defensive line. He's not exactly a defensive tackle. He's not exactly a defensive end, but he can play both positions, be very active and very productive. So when he's inside, he's faster. than a lot of the interior guys. He can get skinny and really hard to block, and so he can get into the backfield that way. When he's off the edge, he could bull rush people. He could bowl offensive tackles over, and has the speed to get to the outside and collapse the pocket that way. So that's what we're looking at when we see Hicks, is a guy that can play along the defensive line. A college coaching staff will figure out a way to get him on the field because of his productivity. And this is going to be an interesting recruitment down to the end. When he picked Texas A&M over Oklahoma, a lot of people were surprised. I think a lot of people even close to him were surprised. Oklahoma continues to push very, very hard for him. That will be interesting. I think it's probably a two-team race right now. Oregon's trying to stay in it, but this is a question of whether he sticks with Texas A&M and continues to load up along that defensive line, or flips to Oklahoma and becomes one of the top players on that defensive line down the road.
Yeah, and positional value huge here. I mean, this is a guy, that you can compare to some of the guys who've gone in the top 5 the past few years. Next up, Malachi Nelson, 5-star USC commit. He's at number 6. Had a pretty good year, and he stays in the top 10.
Yeah, he has, a lot of things go into this ranking and this consideration. Malachi Nelson, when he has time to sit in the pocket, is probably the best and most accurate passer in this class. He has a phenomenal arm, a very good decision maker. He has been helped out and has tremendous chemistry with his teammate at Los Alamitos and Makai Lemon. Both are committed to USC. Those are the things that definitely stand out about him, and playing in Lincoln Riley's offense. He had been committed to Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma. The second Lincoln Riley went to USC, Malachi Nelson decommitted, and then shortly after was committed to him again at USC. I think there's sort of a symbiotic relationship there. Nelson gets Riley, Riley gets Nelson. I think that's going to help over the long term. When things go poorly, Nelson needs to bounce back a little quicker and be a little bit more of a leader on the field. I think that has been one of the criticisms, fairly or unfairly, of him during his high school career. But with a clean pocket, he is a killer out there with the football in his hands. A guy that can go 3 and out, and then boom, boom, touchdown, and the score is 14-0 immediately. So he's a very talented quarterback with a whole lot going for him.
Yeah, and those are the kind of things that can get fixed, just by maturing and growing up. I mean, I don't think he's immature by any means, but Mac Jones, one of the most temperamental quarterbacks I ever saw in my life. I mean, he would throw fits and face would turn red, and he'd be screaming and yelling at 7-on-7s. And obviously Malachi doesn't do that, but he fixed that quickly being around Nick Saban. As he was on the receiving end of those screaming matches. Yeah. So I think Malachi will be fine. The talent's there. Now debuting, moving into the rankings, a new 5-star Caleb Downs. This is a guy that we were behind a lot of other people on. We played it cautious, but after about the first game of the year, it was pretty clear we can't hold this guy back anymore.
Yeah, we were conservative on his ranking, and a lot of that I think had to do with his size. He's not a huge safety. He's not this guy that's just going to blow you away when he walks in the room. But in terms of a playmaker, someone who on the field is going to pick off passes, knock down passes, come up and hit people, and then flips over at running back and runs for a lot of yards just to show just the feel he has on the field. And that's really what football has become, putting athletes on the field who have a great feel for the game and what's about to happen, and then they have the confidence to go and make plays. And that is Caleb Downs to a T. He's committed to Alabama. Georgia is trying everything within their power to flip him back because, he's such a talented guy. Wherever he ends up, Ohio State just had him on campus as well. So those are 3 pretty good programs to determine who's really good in this class. And we love Downs. He's just a guy who's going to make plays on the field, who's going to be smart, who's not going to get burned, who's not going to pick up bad penalties. He's going to make plays, be smart about it. And he's comes from a football family, which we also love.
Yeah, just always around the ball and can do it on offense too. I mean, he could easily be a Power 5 offensive player if that's what he wanted to do. So that skill set at safety, just too much to pass up. All right, next up, Samuel Mpemba from IMG Academy, versatile edge guy and a guy that definitely an upside play for us.
Yeah, definitely upside. We're taking a big bet on him, but we like what we've seen so far, and the projection is just going to be amazing for him. He's one of the best looking players in the class. He's basically built in a lab in terms of what you want out of a linebacker type who can also be an edge rusher. He can be productive when at times in that IMG defense, which is just absolutely loaded with players all across the board. And yeah, this is a guy that's going to, Georgia is definitely out in front for him. If they bulk him up, he's going to be a monster off the edge. If they keep him where he is now, he can play any of those linebacker positions and be super productive. So if he ends up at Georgia, I definitely like the way that they develop their defensive players, obviously. And if he ends up somewhere else, he's just an incredibly talented player who 3 or 4 years down the road, we're going to be discussing as a first-round pick. Someone who gets people on the ground, someone who's a physical presence on the field, and has all the tools to be someone special down the road.
Yeah, just built for the combine. I mean, this guy, he'll be on the old freaks list as soon as possible, as soon as he's eligible for that. All right, another new 5-star, and Damon Wilson, a guy that, high on a lot of boards of a lot of major programs, and now he makes the move to 5-star status.
Yeah, we've seen Damon Wilson a ton this year, a whole lot. We've seen, a lot of those games, and he's a guy that, is physical and long and can get off the edge and collapses the pocket and chases people down. In a stretch play, he comes out of there and gets people on the ground with a lot of tackles. He's also someone who's not fully, filled out as a defensive end. He can still gain some weight. That we love, guys that aren't, peaked out like that. And so he's someone who's productive, physical, and fast off the edge, who can really bend and really make a lot of problems for offensive tackles. So Damon Wilson is a new 5-star, just a guy, defensive end is a primo position. We love guys that look like him and play like him. And so he's moved up a big time in this latest rankings.
All right, next up, Peyton Bowen, another new 5-star, another safety. 2 5-star safeties, pretty rare, but he's just a special prospect.
Yeah, and we don't love 5-star safeties, and the reason is because they just don't get drafted as much in the first round as other positions, but it's almost impossible to keep him off the list based on the season, the senior season he had. He's had other phenomenal performances. He's been incredibly good all along his high school career, and this is just another guy, much like Downs, a little taller, a little longer, that just makes plays, whether it's a pick six, whether it's him coming up on a screen pass and blowing it up and hitting people, just making plays all the time, being the leader of that defense, being the captain in the back there and really running it. And then even on special teams, he's just a guy that's returning punts for touchdowns all the time. He's just a guy that has an incredible feel for what's going on the field, and we love those guys. That's football in the 21st century, and Peyton Bowen's a very good one. Notre Dame is trying as hard as they can to keep him. Oklahoma is trying as hard as they can to flip him. I'd say it's a 50-50 shot right now. Those two teams could get him.
All right, next up, Brandon Inniss. This is a guy we have loved the whole time. We are higher on him than other services who apparently have never watched him play. This is just a special talent. Reminds me a lot of Amon-Ra St. Brown in terms of what he's able to do. What do you think, Gorney?
Yeah, we've moved him back to number 1 wide receiver. We've bounced back and forth with this, not because we're not sure who's a 5-star, but we're not sure who's number 1. We've sided with Inniss now because, he's played receiver, the entire season. Last year, he had to play quarterback because of injuries. But this is someone who just catches every ball thrown his way and gets open on every single play against anybody in every setting, every time we've seen him. And so those guys who have gone to Ohio State like that, like Jackson Smith and Jigba, like Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson. I don't think Inniss is jacked up and is as physical as Amon-Ra St. Brown, but he was exactly the same way. He just always got open, always made big plays, always moved the chains, always was reliable. That's exactly who Inniss is. That's why we moved him to number 1.
Yeah, and NFL teams talked themselves out of Amon-Ra St. Brown because of, whatever measurables he didn't have. And guess what? A lot of teams wish they would have taken him. And I think a lot of people are going to look back on Inniss and be like, hey, look at how good this guy is right away and so consistent. Next up, CARNELL Tate, his close friend, Brandon Inniss, of course. We flip-flopped him. You mentioned he closed the season with a bang and is a guy that we love as well.
Yeah, I remember seeing him in the spring out here in LA at the Pylon tournament, and he would just go over and moss people. He'd just go up and get the ball. He's super smooth, has length, super competitive kid, but a little quiet on the field, which I like that sneaky competitive feel from receivers, not guys that just constantly talk and then don't produce. Carnell Tate does that. He has, good hands. He's a great route runner. He does all the things. And again, he's going to Ohio State. He's going to get the ball a whole lot. He's going to put up big numbers. And even if he flips and goes to Tennessee, which looks unlikely now, he's going to be in a pass-happy offense. He's going to get the ball a whole lot. So from a physical perspective, from the way he, carries himself mentally on the field and the way he, can catch the ball and get open, Carnell Tate is a 5-star and very close to becoming #1 receiver again. Those rankings are not locked in until after the All-Star games, and we're going to see all these guys again.
Yeah, Carnell Tate loves to have feuds with the media, so I love him from that because I'm feuding with the same people. So a chip on his shoulder. Next up, Jackson Arnold, another new 5-star, the Oklahoma commit. This is a guy you've loved, Gorney. You've been pushing for him, and now he's moves way up.
Yeah, Nick Harris loves him too. I definitely love him, and the consideration really started at Elite 11. He's not a kid that's going to blow you away physically. He doesn't, he's a decent looking kid, but not someone like, wow, this is definitely a 5-star kid. But then he throws the ball and just looks different than almost everybody else in the entire class. It pops off his hand. It's complete, perfect spiral with accuracy, everything that you're looking for. And then he's a gamer. He's just a guy who's going to make all the throws, not make a mistake, lead his team, do everything that's needed. Has a real fire about him too that I like. There's been comparisons to Baker Mayfield, which I'm not crazy about because he's a far better and more accurate passer, and he's bigger. So I get that he's going to Oklahoma and he's going to put up numbers and all those kinds of things. But I think he's, Jackson Arnold is much more accurate passer who can really put it all around the field, has great vision, doesn't, let a bad pass ruin the next time he's on the field. And so this is a guy who also is surprisingly athletic, put up big numbers running the ball. So I would not be surprised if Jeff Lebby gets him on some designed runs when that defense is sitting back and just trying to figure out how to stop the pass game in Norman, that Arnold goes and runs for 20 yards for a first down. I think that, he's a special player that I, could actually move up even more with a great all-star performance.
Yeah, and Georgia native too. So when I talked to him, so I left from right up the road where I'm from. All right, next up, KAYDN Proctor stays ranked as a 5-star. Had a huge season once again, playing for a state championship and just mauling people on the way.
That's what he does. He's massive. He's huge. Tristan Wirfs like but bigger. Everything that you could like in an offensive tackle, he does on the field. There's no doubt about it. He's physical. He's looking for people. He has a laser vision to knock people around. He loves to play tough. He doesn't back down from that. He gets to the second level. For a guy that's so big, it's surprising how well he moves, running around, blocking, knocking people around. I wouldn't be shocked if he gets some blocking the back penalties, blocking downfield penalties at Iowa. I don't care. I love that aggressiveness. I love that fire. He wants to dominate physically. Oregon had him in and trying to flip him. He could visit Alabama. That could make things more interesting. But this is a guy at Iowa that is just, primed for success there, to just be a physical mauler and to control people. He does well with speed. If anybody tries to out-tough him, they're going to lose. And he's just someone that we've liked for a long time this high.
Next up, Anthony Hill Gorney. This is a guy, a 5-star linebacker, a position it's really tough to grade, but been really effective and a guy we love.
Yeah, he is a production machine. He's constantly around the ball, does a whole lot to get people on the ground. He's a guy that can kind of get to the line of scrimmage and make problems there for running backs in the hole. He can cover. He can get sideline to sideline and get people down. So as we've gone through this and we've, watched how football is, moved into more of an athletic sport than anything else, this is a guy that fits that mold perfectly. He's going to be able to run all over the place and get people down. So that is the most important thing as we look at linebackers, and Anthony Hill is a perfect example of it.
Yeah, and just a guy that, projects to be a tackling machine at the next level. Next up, Zachariah Branch, someone that we both love, a super productive guy. Another one of these receivers that just loves to compete and loves to show people that he's the best.
Yeah, definitely. He's a guy who has for years just been outstanding, and he's gotten bigger and he's gotten stronger for sure. And he is just a nightmare in one-on-one situations. Give him any space, and he's going to be able to get down the field and make something big happen. He's electric. There have been Tyreek Hill comparisons. I don't want to get that crazy. He's like a mix between Tyreek Hill and Hollywood Brown. He's not as physically jacked up as Hill, not as small as Brown, super fast and dynamic like them both, and he's a really special player.
Next up, Samson OKUNLOLA. This is a guy that is just a bully, I can put it one way. He loves to attack people, playing both ways this fall, and really impressed. We love him at O-line.
Yeah, absolutely. I think his natural position is offensive line, and he's a bully who's also athletic. He has really good feet. He can bend. He's athletic, and he's super long. He's just a guy that's going to get his hands on you and drive his feet and put you into the ground. Plays a little hateful. He's a wrestler. I also love that out of offensive linemen. He's not going up against elite competition every single time he's on the field, but I think he still projects as one of the best players in the country. Someone who's just going to bull you and out-tough you and be more physical than you. It's interesting because his recruitment is kind of going in different ways now. Miami is still looking very good, but Ohio State's coming on. Maybe Michigan State is making a run. It's still sort of up in the air on how that goes.
All right, next up, another new 5-star, Mateo Uiagalelei. This is a guy, of course, we know who his brother is. Just been dominant this season coming off the edge.
Yeah, I remember first meeting Mateo when DJ was at Bosco, and Mateo was the water boy, and I just joked with him the other day that he doesn't look like a water boy anymore. He looks like a grown man. He's like 6'5", 240, awesome-looking kid, and then is so versatile, was so unstoppable in an earlier season game against Bosco coming off, or against Mater Dei coming off the edge, just completely unstoppable. He switches over in the playoff game against Mater Dei and at tight end and is so natural there. He's just a natural athlete, a fluid guy that can play defense if you need him in a pinch, can go to offense. His recruitment is getting more interesting now. Georgia and Ohio State and Oregon are the schools to watch. But if his brother transfers back west, which has been rumored, USC, UCLA, some other schools might be in contention there. Playing together might not be out of the question. Mateo is very interested also in music, is already kind of gone down that path. And so staying in Los Angeles might not be completely out of the question for him yet.
Next up, Desmond Ricks, a reclass from the class of 2024. He's going to decide soon. Big, long defensive back and a guy that we've liked throughout the process.
Yeah, and another kid who is not only big and long, but physical and really kind of gets after it, has a fiery personality, wants to prove that he's the best. Reclassified from 2024. We kept him as a 5-star corner. No longer number 1 at the position, but we still like him pretty high up in the rankings. At the OT7 event in Las Vegas this summer, CORMANI McClain was playing some wide receiver, and Desmond Ricks kind of went stride for stride with him, and they looked very similar. Ricks maybe a little bit more jacked up. So a guy that has reclassified, but still can have an early, be an early productive guy, whether it's LSU, which has kind of jumped out here, or Alabama, which is definitely another school very much in the running.
All right, next up, Miami commit Francis Mauigoa. This is another big offensive lineman guy. Probably projects more to right tackle than a true left tackle as a 5-star, but just a guy that keeps getting better as he learns the position.
Yeah, when he first showed up in Southern California, he was playing defensive end. I don't think he knew what he was doing, and it didn't matter. He was just so big and strong, and you can tell, this was 3 or 4 years ago, that down the line he had really special qualities. He transferred to IMG and rightfully moved over to the offensive line, where I think he projects by far the best. Could be a right tackle, which is perfectly fine. He's a big physical mauler type kid, originally from American Samoa, and they've produced a lot of talented players over the years. So I think Mauigoa at Miami is going to be a very good fit. With that coaching staff, with Mario, who's an offensive line coach himself, I think that's all going to be very important to him, and a very nice pickup for Miami, because throughout his recruitment, the word was his family wanted him back west so they can see him play and make it easier to play. He chose to go to Miami. A nice pickup for the Canes.
All right, KEELEY. This is a guy has everything you want in a defensive end if you were to draw one up, an elite guy and a guy that projects really well to the next level and beyond.
Yeah, I mean, the wingspan is incredible. The length is incredible. I think he needs to be a little bit more physical, and that will come with time as he matures into a college program. But in terms of just those two things, when he stretches his arms out, his wingspan is going to be as good or better than most defensive ends in the NFL already. So he certainly has the tools to be really special. He's got physical attributes that you love. He's got those athletic attributes to come off the edge, to tip passes, to put his hands up, to make it tough for quarterbacks to throw. All the things that you're looking for in defensive end, KEELEY has, and will continue to be one of the best defensive ends in this class. Looks like Alabama, but Ohio State is also kind of pushing hard.
All right, next up, TJ Shanahan, a guy that we are way higher on than other services. Unfortunately, got injured this year, hurt his knee, but we still are high on him as a 5-star.
Yeah, I just don't understand why people don't, just love this kid as an interior offensive lineman who's going to go to battle every single play. And we've seen it time and again. He's just going to maul you. He's just going to battle you and put you into the ground. And when it's the fourth quarter and you're dog tired and you have to go back out there, I mean, he's eating raw meat and can't wait to do it again. I mean, that's just who he is. That's who he's been for a long time. And, he actually just sent me a text about a week ago, and he said, thanks for the ranking, and I can't wait to prove to everybody that I'm going to start at Texas A&M as a freshman and all those kinds of things. And that's exactly what you're getting. You're getting a guy that's going to walk in there and battle every single second he's on the football field and not take a back step to anybody.
All right, next up, HYKEEM Williams, another Florida prospect, big-time body, a guy, throwback wide receiver, a guy that everyone would have had in the top 10, 10 to 15 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. When he walks in, you love him. I mean, there's just no questions about how he looks physically, and he's brought it on the field. He was a big Mike Evans fan and still continues to be. That's why a lot of people thought he was going to end up at Texas A&M. He's far more athletic, though. He's not as plodding, and he can really kind of stretch the field. You throw a ball up in the red zone, he's going to come down with it. He's a guy that could actually probably move up a little bit with a good all-star performance. But on a 7-on-7 team that literally features Brandon Inniss, CARNELL, TATE, Jeremiah Smith, Josiah Trader, all these incredible athletes, HYKEEM Williams is right there with them all. Another 5-star receiver, and definitely out of that group, the best looking one physically.
All right, next up, another new 5-star, Deuce Robinson, a 5-star tight end. Guy basically plays wide receiver, but, sort of the new breed of tight end, and a guy that is a multi-sport athlete as well.
Yeah, that's the thing. And maybe a little conservative on him just because of based off position value. But, after talking to 2 or 3 people, I was convinced that we should make him a 5-star based on this. He really doesn't play tight end, and he's probably not going to play tight end in college. It's just that he's this big, wide receiver pass catcher. He's like a big pass catcher. So whether you want to make him a wide receiver because he splits out or keep him at tight end because he can block here and there, he's going to be a mismatch problem at the next level, and he catches everything. He worked out at the Elite 11 for those quarterbacks over the summer, and he went almost every rep all the time. Never, he didn't just come to collect the gear and sit on the sidelines. He came to work out. I think it's USC or Georgia right now. Texas is still very much in it, but we know Georgia is going to utilize the tight end a whole lot more than they used to. In Lincoln Riley's offense, he could be really, really interesting. A lot of people have said DK Metcalf. He's not exactly as pure as a receiver as that, and he's not as physical, but the size is certainly very similar.
Another 5-star DB, JAVIEN TOVIANO, a guy that we project at corner. A lot of people think he could be a safety, but we're going to keep him at 5-star status headed into the All-Star games.
Yeah, we don't know exactly in 3 or 4 years, in 5, in 10 when he's in the NFL where he's going to be playing, but I don't think it really matters. He's comfortable playing corner. He's big and long. He's instinctual, all of those kinds of things. If he transfers over to safety, if that's where he's needed more, all of those qualities will be welcome at safety as well. And he can come down and be physical. He's big. He gets after people. He can play on an island. And then with that length, he can kind of keep up with receivers who try to run by him. So Toviano is a guy that looks like he's going to LSU, but has been very quiet about his recruitment. So anything can still happen. But wherever he ends up, a defensive back, let's say, who's going to be very special.
All right, and the last 5-star in the class, Nicholas Harbor, a 5-star athlete, plays tight end. plays defensive end, where a lot of people think his ceiling is highest, and of course he's gone viral for his track times as well. Olympic level athlete in terms of his ceiling. So we have him at the last one here, Gorney.
Yeah, he's just an incredible athlete. And so whether he plays tight end, which some schools have flirted with just because of that athleticism, because he's a mismatch nightmare at 6'5", 225, and with that incredible speed. And we're talking about fringe Olympic level speed. He's going to be a guy who track is going to be a very important part of his life. But, you know, the rule is always to put your best athletes on defense. And so if you can give him defensive end, that get off is going to be something that offensive tackles are not used to. That speed to track people down, to chase people down. I think all of those kinds of things make Harbor special. Is he the perfect football player right now? No, but he is probably one of the best athletes we've ever seen in Rivals history. And for that reason alone, you know, at the combine, he's going to blow people away. For that reason alone, you think the football will come to him. And to pair that with that athleticism, he's definitely a 5-star prospect.
All right, so that's the show. Those are the 5 stars. If you have any questions, please contact Rob Cassidy, National Recruiting Basketball Analyst. He will answer all your questions. And stay locked into Rivals.com as we roll out rankings every lead up to National Signing Day. Thanks, Gorney.
Okay.